Hey, the Oscar just wrapped up, and I'm here to give you quick updates, highlights, and upsets regarding the Oscars. I actually have four, so here we go. The first one is about the Will Smith. I have a lot of people who usually doesn't watch the Oscars, and they just came up to me and asked whether or not it's real. Well, first of all, I wasn't there, so I don't know if it's real or not. But based on the observation that I did in Twitter and film Twitters, I think that it's real. So the context was Chris Rock, one of the presenter, he was supposed to present documentary feature, but he was roasting Will Smith's wife, saying that she looks like G.I. Jane. And G.I. Jane is a woman who is bald, and Will Smith's wives is bald. So he got punched by Will Smith, and Will Smith was cursing in a televised event in a national television. So the context was, well, I do think that Chris Rock was out of line because Will Smith's wife, Jade was in it. She was suffering from alopecia and she has to be medically bald. So I think that's really out of line. It's not cool at all. So yeah, so that's what happens. And a lot of people really talks about that moment and wondering whether it's staged or not. Here's what I know. During the commercials, Denzel Washington calming him, and Will Smith's publicist re-strategized how he's going to deliver his speech because he was a frontrunner of Best Actor that night, right? So, and when he was delivering his speech after winning Best Actor that night, he was addressing these issues vividly with a lot of metaphors. But yeah, I think that's what happens. The context regarding Will Smith's event. I think that it will bring a lot of conversation, maybe even traffic. I don't know. The second thing that happened tonight was Coda winning Best Picture in all three categories that it was nominated. Now, a lot of people hates the fact that Coda win, but I don't. I love Coda. And I think that Coda winning over more artistic films like The Power of the Dog or Dune or Drive My Car sends a strong statement on what the Academy or basically movie goers want to, from cinema. I think they sent three messages. The first one is Apple versus Netflix streamers, right? Because this is the first year where streamer versus streamer best picture category was happening in the conversation in predicting the Oscar. But Netflix ended up not being the first streamer winning best picture category, and it won to Apple TV. I think that Netflix should learn from Apple TV by building momentum and crafting the campaign right. And I think that also Apple TV bought the film from Sundance, right? So originally it was not the film that they produced. It is the film that they bought. So I think that it also sends a lower sentiment in a streaming services among the Academy. So yeah, Netflix, you should. I know that you have a lot of crafts, a lot of nominations, but focus on one. Really, focus on one film. If you have to really creating theatrical releases for driving more conversations and box office numbers, do that because that's what happens actually in when people are predicting and when people are deciding what kind of films they have to watch. But eventually, I think there are second factor that makes Coda winning Best Picture. It's a feel-good movie. And a feel-good movie during this strange time in the pandemic, we have Ukraine war, we've lost peoples. I think that it gives sense of hope and sense of joy and sense of, what cinema really is. I understand that Belfast, Licorice Pizza, also that kind of tone, but I think that the protagonist's life, Emilia Jones' character, Ruby, in the film, Coda, has this message where she's letting go all the mess that she has at her home, and also having their families taking care of it and pursuing her future is also the kind of sense of optimism that the cinema wants to portray in this strange years, right? I think that last year, Nomadland is the year of isolation, winning that with that narrative. Subconsciously, people vote for that because they relate to. And I think that during this very depressive year, people just want to win. People want Coda to win because it reflects on what they actually feel, hope. So that's number two. Number three, it's the bigger argument than just Coda, right? Because I think that it talks about an indie film from Sundance. It talks about deaf community and deaf actors representation. It also talks about the rural communities, fishermen communities, for example. It talks about adapting more materials from small films like French to make it more seen, for example, more international, for example. So I think that Coda win is a stronger statement that the Academy has to offer right now. Yes, of course, artistic wise, maybe it's not as difficult or as sophisticated as The Power of the Dog or Dune, but hey, at the end of the day, great film just tells great story, and I think Coda tells great stories. So yeah, that's why I think that Coda wins very historic and great for me. The third one is on the directing category. Jane Campion won, and she was the only winner from The Power of the Dog among 12 nominations. I've seen a lot of my favorite journalists, Anne Thompson from IndieWire, mentioned that she saw the scenario where Jane Campion might be the only winner. I first didn't buy it, which was why I predicted cinematographer to win in The Power of the Dog. I think that the narrative of the women cinematographer after 94 years will happen this year. Turns out it didn't, and Jane Campion was the only winner from The Power of the Dog. I think that despite it's great to see female director to win and gives more chances for female directors to tell their stories. I think that the winning women directors are only telling stories that is either gender neutral or maybe too masculine. Catherine Bigelow and Jane Campion talks a lot from a masculine point of view, right? And Chloe Zhao is a very gender neutral director. So I don't think that it's that empowering for female directors. It would be different if the one winning was, I'd say, Emerald Fennell or Greta Gerwig. I think that sends a very strong message, and I do hope that in the future it could happen, especially Greta Gerwig, my favorite director. I do hope that she wins next time. So yeah, I think that despite that it's great, we have 3 women winning the Oscar in the directing category. It's still a very male and a very masculine category, so I'm not surprised there. That was the third highlights. The fourth highlights is actually the upsets. I have some. Number 1, Lin-Manuel Miranda loses over Billie Eilish. Don't get me wrong, I know that it's a huge stretch for me to even predict Lin-Manuel Miranda winning over Billie Eilish, right? But I think that he's beloved and he has so many narrative, and his song was on the Billboard, even though that it's not nominated because they don't submit that in the song category, which is, I'm talking about, we don't talk about Bruno. And the fact that the Oscar really celebrates his song, even though it's not nominated, I think it's a boost. I think that's a sign that people want him to win an EGOT, and he's just one Oscar away to win an EGOT, but he lost over Billie Eilish. So yeah, I think Billie Eilish and Phineas will be nominated again next year for the soundtrack of Red Panda. No, Turning Red. So I'm happy for them, but I think that the James Bond theme song is just too repetitive. It sounds similar, if I may add. So, but I'm happy regardless. It's an amazing song. Another upset is Licorice Pizza and Nightmare Alley went home empty-handed, and I thought that Nightmare Alley was going to win in production design. I understand that Dune was very crafty. Crafting, 3 planets production designs is not easy, but I think that it's Guillermo del Toro. It's a weird imaginations. I think that it's going to win, but it's not. So I'm rather disappointed on there. And then lastly, it's not so international, actually. It's not so international. We thought that having nominations like The Worst Person in the World, Flea, Drive My Car in Best Picture, I think that it's going to be an international winning, right? Or Penelope Cruz, for example. Penelope Cruz's recent surging was not a big of a deal anyway, it turns out. I'm happy Jessica Chastain won, and I love Cruz's performance, although they're not my favorite, but I love them. But yeah, I think it's a sign that the Academy has not changed a lot. Maybe in terms of nomination, they try to appreciate more, but in terms of winning, I think the majority is still so US-centric, Hollywood-centric, and that's why that's why the winners are not that international. But those are my highlights. Those are my recaps. It's less than 10 minutes. What are your recaps? My accuracy is 82% in Gold Derby, and I'm looking forward for next year's Oscar. I'm signing out. Bye.